Lisa is the CEO and president and chairwoman of the Cooperative Bank, and she's also on the chamber board and has been a great colleague over the years since she moved to the Cape. She's a very generous contributor, very generous colleague, and a great leader on Cape Cod. The bank isn't just help with philanthropy and giving, they're also in action. They also put their employees in action and really galvanize their staff to understand issues and get involved in local nonprofits and the housing issue. So please, Lisa, she's going to kick off the business portion of the summit. And then Paul Niedzwiecki, the CEO, wherever Paul is, there he is. Paul Niedzwiecki will come up right after Lisa and keep it going. Thank you.
For the vertically challenged in the room. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see us here talking about the things that we're talking about. I, too, am very glad I don't have slides. But I am, as my kids would say, getting into the real world by not actually bringing paper up. That's an impressive start. So you can teach an old dog new tricks. Let's just say that. So I'm here to continue the dialogue and the great presentations that started this morning, starting off with a great sense of unity and commitment to change. We may not have talked about solutions yet, but we're certainly talking about the issues and bringing them into a unified consensus, let's say, on what needs to happen next. I want to thank Elisa and the HACK team for bringing us together and getting this process going. And Tim, thanks for the data points that are going to give us all something to think about. We have been talking about the ratio imbalance of the cost of housing to income on Cape Cod for years. Let's all agree, at least this isn't a new thing, well before the current pandemic-induced crisis we find ourselves in. And as you all know, we're here to develop targeted solutions to address the Sisyphean efforts, the unending, thankless, sometimes ultimately unsuccessful in large-scale efforts to address homelessness and the lack of affordable housing across the county. And we need to stop pushing the rock up the hill, only to see it roll back down. Unlike Sisyphus, we are not doomed. We will be successful. So my task today was to set the stage for the business panel to discussion, as Elisa said, which will follow, which is going to focus on the challenges facing employers on the Cape. What you'll hear, in addition to the data, is the complementary stories of the challenges facing these leaders, these business leaders, who are dealing with shrinking workforce, less revenue due to shortened operating hours and output, lower services and support provided to our communities, higher costs to provide housing, and in some cases for a seasonal and displaced workforce, actually very frequently because of that. In setting the stage, Elisa asked me to speak briefly about advocacy in the workplace and why it matters for my seat as the leader of a 101-year-old, 175 employee business on Cape Cod, a large employer. The Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod is a mutual bank whose charter and mission mandates a really strong linkage and connectivity to our shareholders. It's the foundation of our culture, but a mutual bank isn't a public bank. There's no stock symbol that we trade under. We don't trade our currency on the market. So when I talk about shareholders, I'm talking about our depositors or our customers, our community, nonprofits, and civic organizations, and very importantly, employees to whom I feel we have an obligation to create a viable employment and sources of income. So as to our customers, you're going to hear and see the impact of displaced workers on our businesses through the panel, but we see it through our clients' eyes every day. Employees of our customers who sleep in cars, the imported workers, as we've talked about, coming to the Cape from across the bridges, employees moving off Cape and enduring long-hour commutes, as we've discussed, H-2B and J-1 workers require to have housing now before they arrive, which is going to limit the ability to impact that volume of support for our seasonal economy. Absenteeism due to childcare issues where people can't find help because there is no employment. Financing requests for businesses, which now often include additional loans to buy properties to house workers, which is causing an ever-increasing pressure on business success to keep their doors open. And year-over-year revenue stream declines as hours and days have been shortened due to lack of staffing. Our shareholders in the community, our charitable foundation has seen requests increase from around the peninsula and across the needs spectrum. Food, housing, transportation, after-school programming, school meals, veterans assistance, mental health organizations are among the many who have a greatly increased need for capacity building activities. More people need more help just to do what they were doing 3, 4, 5, and 6 years ago. As more of a person's income goes to housing, the less there is available to pay for other critical needs. Food instability is a silent crisis which has been made even worse because of our housing instability. And as do our employees, in 2017, we had less than 5% of our employees living off Cape. Now it's closing on 15%. And to bring this closer to home, we had an employee who had been renting a home in West Yarmouth for several years, lived there with her husband, adult child, and grandchildren. Her landlord listed the home for sale in mid-2021, and she was given 60 days to vacate. She looked everywhere for a rental home, on and off Cape, and ended up moving back to Indiana, where she could find an affordable mix of housing and income. Another employee who lives with her parents in Middleborough and has been commuting to the Cape for 4 years. Although planning to relocate to the Cape 2 years ago, that is indefinitely on hold, and the very long commute continues. We have employees who couch surf with friends until some form of housing becomes available, and younger employees who live with their parents on Cape for much longer stays than ever in the past. Many thought it was COVID related. Now it's a sustainable practice. These are only a few of the stories, and I know they're replicated across all of you and in this room, and to the extent you know people dealing with some of these crises. One of the most significant stories to me is of a friend who runs an organization working on food instability, healthy food instability, who herself does not have her own place to call home and rents, and has found success renting in seasonal homes, or let's say that group of homes that is available when the owners aren't there for vacation. And that's what she's come to, is living in one of those homes, renting one of those homes, and she has to couch surf 2 weeks a year when they come to visit. And she at the same time gets up every day to provide food to those who can't afford it. It is a very tenuous situation at best. So we're in the thick of the challenges that come with housing instability, and thus we advocate. We've trained employees directly. We've also sent them to training themselves to understand how team meetings work, how they can lend their voices to the process of creating meaningful change around this issue. We recently had an employee return from an advocacy and action meeting saying it was a calling. We ask our teams to sign petitions if they are comfortable explaining what it means to sign that petition, and right now that is to increase workforce housing in all towns across the Cape, update zoning bylaws to allow for multifamily and high-density housing in appropriate areas, quickly issue and review requests for proposals for housing development, streamline reviews and public input processes for proposed housing projects. We give time to employees to attend these meetings, volunteer for a nonprofit organization, run for a select board seat. We've donated funds to organizations supporting the housing crisis on the Cape. It's been a target focus for the foundation for the past 2 years, and HAC is a significant recipient of our gifts. And I'd like to note that any amount of money, any amount of monetary support matters, whether you're an individual or a business or anyone in this room. Time, talent, and treasure all matter. We've also worked to create products very much in conjunction with HAC to support the purchase of homes and the accessory dwelling unit rehab and builds that are occurring. Home equity financing to support this opportunity to create additional space on the Cape to house our workers is critically important, and we're working to make this as affordable as possible. Although some of these opportunities are unique to a bank or a large company, everyone from individuals to businesses of all sizes, in essence, everyone in this room, as I said, can support and engage in advocacy. And like I said, unlike Sisyphus, we're not doomed. We will succeed. Advocacy matters, and we advocate to support our shareholders, our clients, our consumers, our clients, our employees, and our community. So, with advocacy in mind, with the data behind us, it's now time for me to sit and for all of you to listen to our business panel, which will be moderated by Paul Nizwicki. A little bit about Paul. I think all of you know he became the CEO of the Cape Cod Chamber last year, just about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and I'm proud to serve on his board. He is a public policy professional and attorney with more than 2 decades of experience in public administration, crafting environmental and economic policy on Cape Cod. He previously served, and why this becomes all relevant globally, as the executive director of the Cape Cod Commission, where he reorganized the agency by reducing red tape and assisting communities to balance and protect the natural environment and fuel economic growth. And prior to that, he was an assistant town manager in Barnstable, where he established the Cape's first growth incentive zone to bolster downtown Hyannis small business. And he was the first chairman of the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative, a very appropriate person to be leading this panel through this discussion, not just based on his current title, but what he's accomplished for the Cape in the past. So Paul, come on up, the floor is yours.